Yeah, I don't really believe in ghosts or any of that paranormal crap. Never have. But something's been happening with my baby monitor, and I don't have a logical explanation for it. Figured I'd throw it out here and see if anyone else has had something like this happen. A little background. I'm a first-time dad. My wife and I just had our son, Owen, about 3 months ago. Love the kid to death. But man, no one tells you how exhausting this whole parenting thing is. I swear, I haven't had more than 3 hours of uninterrupted sleep since the day he was born. Anyway, we bought one of those baby monitors with a camera and audio, so we could check on him without getting up every 5 minutes. It's got night vision, two-way audio, all that fancy stuff. Works great, except last week, I started hearing something weird. The first time it happened, I was half asleep on the couch. My wife was already in bed, and the monitor was sitting on the coffee table next to me. I was dozing off when I heard this faint whispering coming from the speaker. Just this soft, garbled noise. I sat up, grabbed the monitor, and squinted at the screen. Owen was out cold, little arms stretched over his head like he owned the place. The room was empty. I figured, okay, must be interference. Maybe picking up a neighbor's baby monitor or something. I turned the volume down and went to bed. Didn't think much of it until the next night. So after that first night, I told myself it was just interference. Logical explanation, right? Baby monitors run on radio frequencies. Maybe we were picking up some other house nearby. Simple. Except the next night, it happened again. I was in bed this time, lying there with the monitor propped up on my nightstand. My wife was already asleep, and I was doing my usual doom scrolling before passing out. That's when I heard it. This low, whispery sound. Not quite words yet, just a rustling, like someone shifting around. I sat up and looked at the screen. Owen was out cold again, his little chest rising and falling in that twitchy newborn way. The room was empty. I turned up the volume. That's when I heard it. A voice, a whisper, low, breathy. He's such a quiet baby tonight. I froze. My stomach did this weird drop, like when you miss a step going down the stairs. The whisper was faint, but definitely there. And the thing is, neither my wife nor I had been in the nursery for hours. I shook my head, trying to be rational about it. Maybe it was some weird glitch. Maybe I was just overtired. I grabbed the monitor, flipped it off, then turned it back on. The room popped back into view, perfectly normal. No sound. Fine. Whatever. I went to sleep. But the next night was worse. I was alone downstairs again, rocking Owen in my arms while waiting for him to fall asleep. My wife was upstairs, grabbing some rest while she could. The monitor was clipped to my shirt, and as I settled him into his crib, the whispering started up. Again. Only this time it was clear. I pressed the volume button and held my breath. Little Owen, such a sweet boy. My whole body went cold. I looked down at Owen, still asleep, completely undisturbed. I whipped around, expecting. Hell, I don't even know what I was expecting. Someone in the room? A prank. But there was no one. Just me and the baby. I bolted out of there, monitor clutched in my shaking hand. At this point, I was officially freaked out, but I still tried to be logical. Maybe some baby monitors had a weird feedback loop. Maybe there was some kind of delayed playback feature I didn't know about. I Googled it. Nothing. No one else seemed to have this issue. But the night after that, that's when I lost my shit. It was around 2 a.m. I was back in bed wide awake, watching the monitor, because I was too creeped out to sleep. I kept the volume all the way up, listening for anything. For a while, it was just static. Then, "You look tired." I sat straight up. That whisper? It wasn't talking about Owen. It was talking about me. "You should get some sleep." I stared at the monitor screen, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I looked around the room, then back at the screen. My stomach twisted. The camera, its angle had changed. It wasn't pointing at Owen's crib anymore. It had shifted slightly, just enough to capture me reflected in the mirror across the room. The whispering crackled again. "A nice blue shirt." I was wearing a blue shirt. I flung the monitor across the room so fast it smacked against the dresser. My wife shot up, asking what the hell was wrong. I told her I was done. Done with the damn thing. I didn't sleep that night. But the worst part? When I picked up the monitor in the morning, it was still off. Battery dead. No way it should have been transmitting anything. So yeah. Anyone else ever had something like this happen? Because I have no idea what to do next. Okay, so after that night, I finally told my wife everything. I sat her down in the morning, still running on no sleep, and just let it all spill out. The whispers, the voices saying Owen's name, the fact that the monitor somehow knew what I was wearing. I even showed her how the camera angle had moved on its own. She listened, rubbing her temples the whole time, and when I finished, she just sighed. "It's the exhaustion," she said. "You're barely sleeping. Your brain's playing tricks on you." I almost laughed. Playing tricks? Nah, that wasn't just my brain. But she wasn't buying it. She told me to take a nap, that I'd feel better afterward. Fine. Whatever. I didn't push it. But then, when I went to check on Owen, later that afternoon, I found something in his crib that I know wasn't there before. A toy. Now, we've got a ton of baby stuff, obviously. Gifts from family, things we bought ourselves. But this? I had never seen this thing in my life. It was this old, faded, stuffed rabbit. The fur was matted and gray, like it had been left outside for years. The eyes, one was missing. The other was this glossy black bead that looked too shiny, like it had been replaced. I just stood there, staring at it. I called my wife upstairs and asked her if she put it there. She looked at me like I had two heads. "I've never seen that before." I picked it up, and that's when I noticed something off. It wasn't just a stuffed animal. There was something inside it. The weight was uneven, like something small was sewn into its body. My fingers ran along the stitching on its belly and I felt it. A lump, something stiff crinkling under the fabric. I don't know why, but I suddenly felt sick. My hands were shaking as I ran downstairs, grabbed a pair of scissors and, ignoring my wife telling me to stop, I cut the stitching open. Something fell out. A piece of paper, yellowed at the edges. There was a note. I picked it up, unfolded it, and read the words scribbled inside. It was supposed to be me. That's all it said. I had to sit down because my legs weren't working right. My wife kept asking me what the hell was going on, but I didn't even know what to say. Who wrote this? How did the toy get in Owen's crib? What does that message even mean? I didn't have answers. We got rid of the rabbit, tossed it straight in the outside trash bin. I told myself maybe it was an old toy left in the house before we moved in, and somehow we just never noticed it before. A stupid explanation, but I needed something. The day passed. Night came. I was terrified to go to sleep, but I had to pretend things were fine, for my wife's sake. So we got into bed. turned out the lights, and I told myself, just one normal night, please. I should have known better, because at exactly 3:12 a.m., I woke up to the sound of the laughter crackling through the baby monitor. And it sure as hell wasn't Owen's. I shot straight up in bed. That sound, Jesus, I don't even know how to describe it. It wasn't Owen. It wasn't my wife. It was wrong. It crackled through the baby monitor like a busted radio signal. This dry, wheezing laughter, too high-pitched to be an adult, too distorted to be a child. It faded in and out like whatever was making the sound was flickering between my reality and somewhere else. I grabbed the monitor so fast I nearly knocked it off the nightstand. The screen flickered, adjusting to the dim glow of Owen's nightlight. And there he was, sleeping peacefully in his crib. Alone, but the laughter. It was still coming through the speaker. I swear to God, my entire body locked up. My arms felt too heavy to move, like my brain was screaming at them to do something. But they wouldn't listen. I don't know how long I sat there, just listening. Then just as suddenly as it started, silence. The screen flickered, static washing over it for a split second before snapping back to Owen, still sleeping. I turned to my wife, heart pounding. She hadn't moved, still asleep, completely unaware. I forced myself to take a breath, gripping the monitor like it might disappear if I let go. And then, whispering, not the laughter, something new. I turned the volume up. The voice was so soft, I could barely make it out, like someone was muttering just beneath their breath. May, he doesn't belong to you. I felt my stomach turn inside out. My hands went ice cold. I stared at the screen, waiting for something, anything to move. The camera was angled straight at Owen, his little face half buried in his blanket. Nothing else in the frame. It was supposed to be me. The exact same words from the note inside that goddamn toy. I was out of bed before I even realized I'd moved. I grabbed the monitor and bolted for the nursery. My brain kept screaming, "Hurry, hurry, hurry," like I was racing against something I couldn't see. I hit the hallway, skidding on the floor as I reached for the nursery door, and froze. The door was already open. Just a crack. The nightlight cast a faint glow across the room, spilling through the gap. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought I might puke. I pushed the door open. Nothing, just the soft hum of Owen's sound machine, the glow of the stars on the ceiling, my son, still fast asleep. I exhaled, my hands shaking as I ran them through my hair. Jesus Christ, maybe my wife was right. Maybe I was just... Then I saw it. The stuffed rabbit, sitting in the rocking chair. Right where I... No, I'd thrown it away. That's when my body just... acted. I don't even remember making the decision. 1 second I was standing in the doorway, the next I was grabbing the rabbit, storming downstairs, and throwing open the back door. I went straight for the trash bin, ripped the lid off, and my heart nearly stopped. The rabbit was already there, inside the bin, lying on top of the garbage, right where I'd left it yesterday. I looked down at my hands, still holding another identical rabbit. I dropped it, just let it hit the ground like it was something diseased. My skin was crawling, my breath coming too fast. I had this overwhelming animal urge to get inside those, to lock every door to make sure Owen was okay. So I did. I locked the doors, checked every window, went back upstairs and stood over Owen's crib, just staring at him for what felt like hours. I didn't sleep. The next morning, my wife woke up to find me sitting in the nursery, eyes bloodshot, the baby monitor still clutched in my hands. She took one look at me and said, "What happened?" And I told her everything. Told her about the laughter, the whispers, the note in the toy, how I threw the rabbit away, and then somehow held an identical one in my hands. She didn't argue with me this time. She just sat there, staring at me like she wanted to say something, but didn't know how. And then, this part I'll never forget. She swallowed hard and said, "I think we should check the monitor footage." And that's when everything got worse. I don't know why I thought watching the monitor footage would help. Maybe some part of me still believed there was a rational explanation. Maybe I wanted proof that I wasn't losing my mind. But deep down, I think I already knew. I already knew that whatever was happening here, it wasn't normal. It wasn't something that could be explained away by exhaustion or interference or any of the other bullshit I'd been telling myself. So when my wife sat down next to me, grabbed my laptop, and started transferring the night's recording from the monitor's memory card, I just sat there, my stomach churning. We didn't speak. The file loaded. The progress bar crawled forward. The video popped up on the screen, and we watched. At first, it was just Owen, lying in his crib, sleeping like an angel. The soft glow of the nightlight flickered against the wall, casting shadows from the rocking chair, the changing table. Nothing unusual. Then, the whispers started. My wife stiffened. Her hand tightened around the laptop mouse. It was faint at first, like wind moving through an open window. But then the words became clear, weaving through the static. "You shouldn't be here." I felt my entire body go cold. It was supposed to be us. My wife let out this tiny broken sound, and then the final voice, deep, distorted, like something trying to force itself into human speech. And it said, my name. I slapped the laptop shut so hard the sound echoed through the room. My wife jumped, staring at me with wide, horrified eyes. I was already on my feet, heading for the nursery. I don't even remember making the decision to move. 1 second, I was in the bedroom. The next, I was throwing the door open, heart hammering in my throat, expecting... what? I don't even know. Something standing over Owen's crib. Something reaching for him with 2 long fingers. But there was nothing. Just Owen, sleeping peacefully, undisturbed. I let out a breath, shaking. My wife appeared behind me, gripping my arm. I could feel how tense she was, how scared. I turned back toward the baby monitor sitting on the dresser. The screen flickered. And that's when I saw it. The shadow standing over Owen's crib. Not in the room, not anywhere we could see with our own eyes. But on the monitor. It was tall. Unnaturally tall, its head nearly brushing the ceiling. Its limbs were too long, its body warped, shifting, like it wasn't meant to exist in our space. And its face. Oh God. It didn't have a face. Just a void where its features should be. A black, gaping emptiness. And then, as I stood there, frozen in sheer terror, the thing turned its head. Not toward Owen, toward the camera, toward by me. I yanked the monitor's plug out of the wall so fast I nearly tore the cord. The screen went black. And in that silence, deafening, suffocating, I swear I heard it. Laughter. Somewhere in the house. And it wasn't coming from the monitor this time. I didn't move. I couldn't. The room was dead silent except for the soft whir of Owen's sound machine. I could feel my wife behind me, barely breathing. I didn't even have to turn around to know she'd seen it too. The thing, the shadow on the monitor, The moment I yanked the plug, the screen went black and the shadow vanished. But that didn't change the fact that it had been there, watching. And now? Now, there was laughter. Somewhere in the house, my body went ice cold. At first, I thought I'd imagined it, some lingering echo from the monitor. But then I heard it again, closer this time, software crackling, like static and breath, and something trying to force itself into a shape that didn't quite fit. I turned toward my wife. She was already looking at me, her face pale, eyes wide. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to say something, but no words came out, because she heard it too. I swallowed hard, forcing air into my lungs. My pulse was slamming against my ribs so hard I thought I might pass out. And then another sound. Not laughter this time, something far worse. A creaking noise, deep and deliberate, like weight shifting on floorboards, not in the nursery, not upstairs. Down the hall, near our bedroom, I felt like my body wasn't mine anymore, like I was moving on autopilot as I slowly stepped out of the nursery. The hallway stretched out ahead of me, too dark, too still. I reached for the light switch with a shaking hand and flipped it on. The bowl flickered, once, twice, before flooding the hall with dim, yellow light. Empty. I let out a breath. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe I really was just sleep-deprived, my brain playing tricks on me. Maybe... Then the light flickered again, and the laughter came from right behind me. I spun so fast I nearly lost my balance. But there was nothing there. Just my wife, still standing in the nursery doorway, one hand gripping the frame like she needed to steady herself. But she was staring at something, not at me, at the baby monitor. I turned slowly, dread twisting my stomach into knots. The monitor wasn't even plugged in anymore. The screen should have been dead, but it wasn't. It was on. And on the screen, a live feed of our bedroom. My breath got in my throat. That wasn't possible. The camera was penny, in the nursery pointed at Owen's crib. There was no reason it should be showing anything else, but there it was. Our bedroom. The bed unmade, blankets tangled, my nightstand. The empty crib where we used to let Owen sleep when he was first born. And then, in the corner of the screen, movement. A figure, tall, wrong, moving slow, like its limbs weren't connected properly. I couldn't make out details, just the vague, shifting outline of something stepping out from the shadows, something too big to be inside our house. And then it stopped and turned toward the camera. My body locked up. The screen flickered, static crawling over it for a split second, and then the thing was closer. Standing at the foot of our bed now. Still no face, just a yawning black void where its features should be. The static crackled again, and it moved closer. Now at the nightstand. Another flicker. Closer. At the camera. Closer. Closer. And then its face was filling the entire screen. A void. A deep, endless black hole. Like if I looked too long, I'd fall into it and never come back. And then it spoke. Not a whisper, not laughter, just one word. Low, distorted, crawling up my spine and wrapping around my throat like a noose. It said her name. Mine. The screen cut to black. And the laughter. The laughter was in the hallway. Right behind Mister. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The laughter was right behind me. So close I could feel it in my bones. Low, crackling, like something trying to shape itself into human sounds, but getting it all wrong. My wife whimpered from the nursery doorway. I could hear her breathing, fast and shallow, but I couldn't look at her. I couldn't look at anything except the baby monitor. The screen had gone black, but something inside me knew it wasn't over. A floorboard creaked right behind me. The air in the hallway changed. It got heavy, like the whole house was pressing down on me, like whatever was standing there was pushing against reality itself. Then a voice, not whispering this time, not laughing, something worse, humming, a slow, eerie, broken version of a lullaby. I'd heard that tune before. It took me a second to place it, but when I did, my stomach dropped. It was the same lullaby we played for Owen every night on his sound machine. But the way this thing hummed it, it was all wrong. Like it didn't understand the melody. Like it was mimicking the sounds without knowing what they meant. I squeezed my eyes shut. I wanted to run, to grab Owen, to get my wife the hell out of this house. But I had to see it. I had to know. So I turned, and it was there, standing in the dim light of the hallway. Tall, wrong, watching me. Its body was shifting, like it wasn't fully solid, a mass of shadows that sometimes almost took the shape of a person, but never quite held on to it. But its face, God, it didn't have one, just that gaping black void, deeper than anything I'd ever seen. I felt it pulling at me, like if I stared too long, I'd fall into it, like it wanted to swallow me whole. Then it moved. One slow step forward. I stumbled back, my breath coming in short, panicked bursts. My wife let out a choked sob. The thing took another step. Then another. I don't remember making the decision to run. 1 second, I was frozen. The next, I was grabbing my wife's wrist, yanking her into the nursery, slamming the door shut. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely turn the lock. Silence, except for the sound machine, still playing Owen's lullaby. I backed away from the door, my pulse pounding in my ears. My wife clutched Owen against her chest, tears streaming down her face. We just stood there, waiting, listening, and then a knock, soft, deliberate, and wrong, knuckles dragging against the wood in a way that sent something cold and primal through me. I clenched my jaw so hard it ached. The thing outside hummed the lullaby again. But now, it wasn't just humming. It was singing. A voice that was barely human, warping in and out like a bad radio signal. Rockabye, baby, in the treetop. My wife let out a strangled sound and pressed Owen closer. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a lamp from the dresser, and held it in front of me like it would actually do something. The humming stopped. Silence. Then, scratching. Fingernails dragging down the door, slow and steady. I opened my mouth to say something, anything. But then, the baby monitor turned back. The screen flickered to life, and this time it wasn't showing the nursery, it was showing outside the door. Showing Zack the thing is Dowd standing there. I could see it on the screen, looming, waiting, its head tilted slightly, like it knew we were watching. And then, in real time, I saw it lift one long, thin hand and reach for the doorknob. I lost it. I don't even remember making the call, but suddenly I had my phone in my hand. I was dialing 911 with shaking fingers. The moment the dispatcher picked up, I barely got the words out. Someone's in my house. I didn't say something. I said, had someone? Because if I said what I really saw, I wasn't sure they'd even come. And the second I spoke those words, the monitor went black. The scratching stopped. The house went silent. I don't know how long we stayed in there. It felt like forever. The cops showed up 10 minutes later, banging on the front door. When they searched the house, they found nothing. No sign of a break-in. No footprints. No thing lurking in the hallway. But the baby monitor, the footage was gone, like it had never even recorded in the first place. We left that night, packed up and went to my parents' house. I don't care if we just bought this place. I don't care how much money we'll lose. We're selling. And Owen, he's not spending one more night in that house. We got a hotel for now. My wife keeps saying we should just burn the place down and never look back. Honestly, I'm not against it. I still don't know what the hell that thing was. And I don't think I want to. But the worst part? When I put Owen in his travel crib tonight, he laughed, not like a baby giggle. Not like he was happy. It was the same laugh I heard on the monitor. I don't know what to do. I don't even know if leaving was enough. If anyone has any idea what this thing was, please tell me what the hell it wants.